Welcome to another show of Execution Matters podcast. Today I've got one of the great experts in account-based marketing, Vladimir as my guest. So if you're on LinkedIn and following the posts related to demand gen and account-based marketing, definitely you would have come across the posts of Vladimir. So about Vladimir, he's a co-founder of fullfunnel.io, an ABM agency. So thank you so much, Vladimir, for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Super excited to be here.
Excellent. So let's jump to the podcast. Let's start the questions over here. So let's start with a little bit introduction about the account-based marketing. So there are a lot of people who would be really unfamiliar with the term, right? So can you explain what really account-based marketing is and how it really differs from traditional B2B marketing strategies?
To say it very simple, it's all about accounts that you're marketing to specific accounts, right? So it's usually something that you will do if you have a high deal value size. So let's say at least 50K plus per year. You're selling to upper mid-market enterprise customers that have complex buying centers, multiple buyers, etc. And you are going to personalize your marketing to those accounts. You're going to create personalized buying experiences, having, let's say, personalized value proposition and content, and you're going to also engage with those buyers in a way that actually makes sense to that market and to that account to distribute your, let's say, marketing, value proposition, content, etc., and so that you're actually creating awareness and driving demand within that account.
Got it. So shall we talk something about the evolution of account-based marketing? So I think you are working in ABM for a lot of years, right? So how are you seeing the evolution of ABM over this many years? So what triggered really rise the popularity of the same in the the B2B marketing space?
Sorry, I was just thinking about I'm still thinking about the previous one, so let me just jump in. So in terms of evolution, I think the first thing we saw when we started to think about account-based marketing was the new technology allowing us to actually advertise based on IP, right? So I think maybe it was Terminus. I'm not sure who was the first platform that came up with this idea. Okay, give us a list of account names that you want to target, that you want to advertise to, and we'll just get your ads in front of them. I think this was the first version 1.0. Now, over time, so we started to understand that it is a much more strategic approach, that it's important to figure out your ICP, how you're going to select the accounts, how you're going to target them. And then for a lot of time, I think, other than advertising, what we saw as well was a lot of companies and a lot of agencies, actually, is something that we see in the field, are now selecting the accounts, creating account lists, and doing other than maybe account-based advertising, also kind of mass outreach. Maybe they're also using LinkedIn to advertise there. But essentially, the approach is something like you have your target accounts. Usually, it's a wish list that sales gets. Essentially, the top, let's say, 50 accounts in your territory, Fortune 100 companies where's no indication that they might have a need or that you would be actually reasonably able to win that deal even if you generate that. And then marketing adds a bunch of accounts based on broad firmographics criteria, basically all the financial service companies in the US, for example. And you end up with 2,000-3,000 accounts, north of 1,000 at least. And then, of course, the only thing you can do is you can run some sort of generic marketing campaigns on them. And like I said, other than advertising, there's also then cadences with cold email outreach or LinkedIn outreach, whether it's like sponsored email or just organic. And these campaigns, unfortunately, and we have probably seen more than 100 different campaigns as we meeting new clients and auditing the way that they were running these campaigns. The honest and brutal truth is that they convert, like from the, let's say if you have 100 accounts, or let's say even like 1,000 accounts, you might end up with one deal. So it's really like 0.1%. It's crazy, right? how bad this works. And then the latest kind of trend, I think like there are two things that we have seen last couple of years. It's all about intent data. Again, as a trend, intent data can be extremely useful, but as a trend, what we see a lot is a lot of companies doing the same kind of play and the same kind of approach, but just picking the accounts from the same source of intent data that everybody else has. So again, not very effective. And I think the latest trend that we see in some of the, let's say, ABM vendors are also promoting is the use of AI, a generative AI, specifically to research the accounts and to create personalized messaging.
Yeah, the thing is, in my perspective, I would say rather than do this generic marketing, definitely, if you have a clear idea about your ICP, I think definitely you can choose the accounts. And one perspective, it takes some time. I think it takes time to not to prepare the part. I think identify the right accounts to target. Definitely, the preparation part is there, but the thing is, it saves a lot of money after that. I mean, like for example, if you're going for advertising, you will not waste your money in advertising to false accounts. So I think it really helps on that part. Definitely, what you said is absolutely correct on that part. So let's talk about something about the strategy development for account-based marketing. So I think you explained that a little bit on the last question. So can you walk us through the process of developing a comprehensive ABM strategy? So how do you really identify and prioritize the target accounts on in a real scenario?
All right. So I would say it's even worse, like reflecting on what you said about wasting money. I think it's even worse because a lot of companies, what we actually see in reality is that they have marketing that is especially not very effective, and they see an account-based marketing approach as a way out, as a new way to, let's say, market or a new experiment. Then they invest in the approach. Maybe they purchase MarTech, do these approaches like we described previously, and what happens is that they just stop. And this is the real reality. It's not even just about wasting money, it's about a complete failure in a lot of cases. Now, going back to your question about how do you select the accounts, what is the strategy steps that you need to take? Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to go back and look at the historical data. And what I mean by that is two main sources. And the first source is the revenue analysis. And what I mean by that is just looking at all the revenue that you've generated over the last 2 or 3 years, and then segmenting your market, looking at the different verticals, looking at the different geographical regions, and figuring out where do we have the best deals. How do you describe the best deals? Well, which of those verticals or segments are making the most money? Where do you have the largest deals? Where do these accounts and deals stay, or these customers essentially stay the longest, right? Where do you have the best case studies, etc., right? So you have a number of criteria that you use to compare them, but essentially you want to identify what are the target segments that we are going to use, we should focus on with our ABM. And then the next piece of the data that you look at is within those target segments, within those top, let's say, verticals and geographies, you look at your top accounts. So you look at your maybe 5 to 10 largest deals. You look at maybe also fastest deals, but you may also include, let's say, 5 largest lost deals. And I will explain exactly why. So the first reason that you're looking at those deals is to understand what those best customers have in common. Like, what are the characteristics? So when you were doing the initial revenue analysis, looking at the different segments, you're starting to understand, okay, on the very basic level, the firmographics criteria in terms of the industry vertical and the target market or the region, but now you're going to dive deeper, and you're going to check for basically characteristics of those target accounts that make one account that will be an indication that this account actually has a need and that you can actually reasonably close, win, and retain. These are the important things. And this is what we call account qualification criteria. And these are non-standard criteria, not necessarily firmographics. So let me give you a concrete example. We have worked with a company that had a bunch of industries, and they could serve with their technology different kinds of industries. Based on the revenue analysis, we identified that one of the top target verticals should be advertising technology space. But then when we started to look at their top deals from that space, and actually even based on customer interviews, we started to figure out, okay, so these are the companies. They selected our client as a vendor because of their specific expertise in technology with something that is called mobile SDK. Now, don't ask me what it is, doesn't really matter. But what was really cool is that now, using this one criterion, we could select, I think for a pilot campaign, we selected 11 accounts. And as after running an ABM pilot for 6 months, they generated opportunities with 9 out of those 11 target accounts. So it was extremely effective. It was also something that was easy to figure out because people would maybe put that in their product roadmap. They would put that maybe on the LinkedIn profile, a person who is like doing the mobile SDK, right? And eventually not only winning these, creating these opportunities, but actually winning 3 of them. And I'm talking about opportunities that were 10 times larger than their average deal size. Talking about high 6-figure, 700K, about those kind of opportunities. So you're looking for those characteristics that make one account a better fit, more likely to have a need, and also more likely that you're more likely to close and to retain. So this is the second part that you're using. Now, if you have these target accounts, so now you know which industries to look at, etc. The third piece of data that you want to look, if you're looking to create an account list, right, the target list, how to pick the accounts, that was your main question, is look at the sources of intent data. Now, you can look at essentially 2 sources. You can look at the sources of intent data, and I'm not talking about third-party intent data, like content syndication or something where you actually just know that an account has somebody from that target account is interested in a topic. I mean, it could be a piece of data, but I think I would rather see accounts that are actually already engaging with your brand. Let me explain what I mean. Every day we see target accounts visiting our website, and not just bouncing off a blog post, but let's say high value accounts visiting high intent pages, maybe 3-4 people from that target account. Maybe they spend in total sometimes a couple of hours, right? So really significant engagement and a significant level of intent, and they're not reaching out to us. So we do a lot of demand gen, and this is why we have all of those accounts visiting, but they're not reaching out to us. Why? We don't know. It could be because they're not sales ready. Maybe they haven't found the information they were looking for. Maybe they got a critical question from their colleague that they didn't know how to address. And what happens is, if we are ignoring this hidden demand, is that we are going to leave a lot of money on the table. And that is exactly where you want to source the accounts for your account-based marketing. These are accounts that are showing intent, they know your brand, they're highly engaged. This is the ideal, let's say, account. If you don't have a lot of that data, you can also look simply at your demand generation programs. You can look at, for example, accounts that are, again, like multiple engagements. Maybe they've attended several webinars, they have maybe engaging high engagement on social, and then again, showing some intent without yet raising their hand. So showing some intent such as, for example, maybe they were checking out your case studies, maybe they attended a more product-related webinar or something like that. Now, if you don't have that data, right, so maybe you don't have such a developed demand generation program, you don't have these engaged accounts, what else can you use? You can actually look at relationships, And what I mean by relationships is you can look at your key people. Maybe these are executives, maybe these are, let's say, more experienced salespeople you have on a team, how well they are connected with specific accounts, because they can start getting some insights, you can get introductions, etc. And another way to look at these relationships is via referrals. And what I mean by that is, just give you a concrete example. Once I wanted to reach out to top accounts in our region, in our original region where we came from, that was in Western Europe, and I started to try to book a call, started to build a list of 20 target accounts, and I was actually wanted to just build a relationship initially with the marketing directors and CMOs, and I invited them to the podcast that I was hosting, and I had to stop at 11 because 8 of them said yes. Right? 8 out of 11 said yes. I just didn't have the time to process more at the time. Right? So these are like referrals. But again, the best source of intent data is like highly engaged accounts that are showing intent and already know your brand, are highly engaged on there.
Those are really mind-blowing insights, Vladimir. I think I got a lot of content from that single question itself. I think you talked a lot about the referrals part. I think account-based marketing in so much in deeper stuff. Thank you so much for that. Now I recollect one of the instances, I think before some 3-4 years, when I was not really know about this account-based marketing. So this happened, I think 4 years back in one of the consulting gigs. So we are working. So that time that company was running a LinkedIn ad that time. So it was like IT service and consulting company. So in the LinkedIn ad, when I analyzed, they were targeting all those industries. Okay. I mean, everyone. So, but they target the founders and CEOs. I mean, like the segment was correct, but the thing is they're targeting all the industries. But when I checked the website, they had got around some, I think some 6 case studies. And out of that, 3-4 case studies was one specific industry. I remember it's like healthcare industry. So then I was talking to the CEO, why we are not targeting the healthcare industry alone, because that is your strength. So even though I didn't know much about account-based marketing, that made complete sense to me, because you're running LinkedIn ad and you're targeting all these industries and you're having a common creative over there. But if you had a healthcare case study and if you target only those accounts, definitely you would have made a lot of difference and you would have made a lot of money. So yes, I recollect that incident, because when you talked a lot about account-based marketing, I recollected that incident. So let's talk about this alignment sales, because right now everyone is talking about this marketing and sales alignment, right? So how do you ensure that the marketing and sales teams are fully aligned when the ABM approach is coming? So what challenges that you have really encountered in this marketing and sales alignment, and what are the tips that you tell to overcome this stuff?
It's a super relevant question, and the reason is that you can't really have a successful account-based marketing approach without this alignment. And just to also give a little bit of extra context for people, when we are talking about account-based marketing, a lot of people think about pipeline, like essentially a different way to do lead generation. And if you actually look at what are the different goals that you can use account-based marketing for, are generating opportunities in pipeline with net new accounts, right? But when you look at the generation of pipeline, there is not only about how many opportunities I can generate, but actually, am I generating opportunities that are closing faster? Am I generating opportunities that are resulting in a higher ACV? Am I generating opportunities that are staying longer? And essentially, if you're running the account-based marketing program correctly, when it comes to net new accounts, you should be able to generate opportunities with 20+% of your target accounts. These are the averages, right? According to the studies. Your deal size should be, now I don't want to misquote, but I believe it was 140% larger on average. And then there was another percent was, I think, 41% better win rate. I might have mixed the two. But essentially, you want, so it's not just about pipeline generation when it comes to net new accounts. And then secondly, it's also not just about net new accounts. It's also about expanding deals with existing accounts. It's about, you have to land, but then you need to expand by upselling or maybe closing deals with other departments, other regions in that account, etc. Now, it's also about pipeline acceleration, etc. Now, when you look at account-based marketing holistically, there is no way that you can, for example, work on pipeline acceleration or expansion without having close collaboration, not only with the account executives, but also, like in the case of the current accounts, and expansion also in a lot of cases with the CS, with customer success, right? But even like when it comes to generating net new opportunities, right? So generating sales qualified opportunities with net new accounts, you really need to work closely with at least sales development and as well, of course, account executives, because you don't want to be generating engagement and opportunities without those actually being handled properly by sales. And remember, what is the situation in a lot of companies? The situation is marketing has lost its face, unfortunately. That's the case. So the majority of companies, what they're doing, B2B companies, what they're doing right now, their marketing is generating some sort of leads, MQLs or whatever, and they're sending those leads to sales, and they're not qualified. Maybe they have some scoring, and then they say, okay, we are not going to send each and every MQL, but we are going to score them based on engagement and whatnot. And then if they are above a certain score, that's when we are going to send them to sales. But when I talk to sales and I ask them, okay, but why are you not following up on those? Because that's a common complaint from marketing. Okay, we are doing it, but they're not following up. And that's why it's, well, what I hear is, well, first of all, I don't know. I have no idea, like, why you're sending this. Like, they have no idea of any history, like what's happening. Like, what is the reason that I should work on this account? Like, this is the God honest truth, right? And secondly, when it comes to even just trying, okay, so, okay, what should I do? That's also not clear, right? So sometimes then marketing might provide some cadences or sequences to SDRs to work on those. But then what happens is they try work on them, nothing, there's no response, or the response is miserable. Maybe they generate some meetings, but then they come there and they see that there's no real sales intent. They joined out of curiosity. Essentially what they realize is that they are wasting their time, and they just stop doing it, right? And so this is the situation that a lot of companies face, out of which now we have to create sales and marketing alignment for us to be able to work together on those target accounts. How do you do that? That's a good question. And how does it look like in practice? I think you should think about sales and marketing alignment on two levels. The first level is just, let's say, the go-to-market strategy level. When it comes to essentially, what are the markets that we are going after? What are the account qualification and disqualification criteria? We should never have discussions, or even the term sales accepted lead should disappear if you're doing our account-based marketing right. And what I mean by that is, if we have agreed upfront what is the meaningful, like what is the intent and engagement threshold before we move to the next phase, what are the account qualification and disqualification criteria based on our actual history, based on our best deals, right, et cetera, there won't be a lot of misalignment there. So if you're aligning on the ICP, on the target market, but also on things like messaging, like for this specific vertical, I guess we are going to talk about it later. How do we personalize the value proposition, content, etc., etc. Now, this is go-to-market. These are kind of the strategic elements where you need to be aligned. But you also need to be aligned on the execution level, right? Okay, this is what I said. Okay, we are passing this account to you, but first of all, what should I do, right? What did you do and what should I do, right? And so we need to be able to define what we call account development playbook. So we need to be able to define specific processes, playbooks, tactics, right? On how we are actually going to engage those target accounts and who is going to do what. What are the playbooks that marketing will run? What are the playbooks that sales will run? And what are the playbooks maybe that we are going to share, right? So it really requires this collaboration on both the or alignment, right, and collaboration on the execution level. Now, how do you get there? So you're starting from this very bad place where there's a lot of blaming, where there is, like I said, also kind of marketing lost face, and you have to go to a place where we are working closely together. It's hard, I'll tell you. And the best way that we found is always think of this video that you can find on YouTube about the guy who started a dance party at the music festival. If you look it up, you'll see a guy dancing alone on a music festival, and he's dancing and dancing. He's really like into it. And then another person joins, and then another.
Yes. Yeah.
And eventually you have a dance party. So this is how change happens in organizations. You want to identify what you might call a change agent or champion. So a highly engaged person from sales and work together during a pilot. So we usually start with a pilot when we're introducing. I'm talking about introducing, right? So starting, and then you want to work closely with them, and you want obviously to create success, because if you create success, this is the language that sales understand. Whatever you say, whatever you promise or say, they will take it with at least a healthy dose of skepticism, and in most other cases, they're just not going to buy it. You are not there in the field. You haven't sold, right, to your customer, right? And especially if they had already bad experiences with you in the past, they, at the best case, they might give you a benefit of a doubt. But when you then start asking to do this and do that, it's just not going to work. So you need to, first of all, you need to have a really good plan. You need to have a good strategy. They need to believe in that, and they will believe in that if it is based on, like I said, on the actual analysis of the best deals and all of these things. Then you need to find that one person that is willing to, and of course, what is also important is that it's not just about that one person, it's also about the leadership. So the leadership needs to give you that support. Again, unfortunately, there is not a lot of trust in a lot of organizations, or maybe they're like the leadership as well, like sales might have been burnt. Okay, a lot of different failed experiments, let me put it like that. But then what you are now asking is to invest in a new approach, and they are not going to get your explanations of ABM or demand gen or whatnot. But if you really if you explain exactly, okay, we are targeting these accounts, that's why we are seeing they're engaging, but they're not yet reaching to us, this is what we are going to do. And all I'm asking is for us to set up a pilot. And really important, we are going to work together with sales, and we are going to work maybe one or two people. And this person or people, that's really important that during that period, during that pilot, we adjust their KPIs, because in a lot of organizations, the sales is compensated based on, especially sales development based on activity KPI, obviously also, pipeline revenue, but a lot of activity KPIs. Just for example, meetings booked, which is not the best KPI, because you can book a lot of meetings, doesn't mean that you're going to generate a lot of revenue. And then, because if you don't do that, then even with the best effort, like salespeople are just going to revert back to whatever they were doing before, simply because, that's their compensation, etc. They might try here or there, but if they don't see an immediate result, and there's never an immediate result. You need to be patient, right? So that's another thing. I would say, also very practically, if you're really setting this up, what I really like to do, this has been like a big insight for me, last year maybe. Also, when you're really planning the work and the playbooks and the things that you're going to actually implement and run, I really like to try to start engaging the target accounts as soon as possible, and try to get at least discovery call books. So these are not sales qualified opportunities yet, because that's something that is sometimes outside of your control, depending on the kind of the intent data that you have, and the amount of demand gen, your brand. If you're like a top brand in your category, of course, it's a different story. But if you're not, like a lot of companies, like by definition, the vast majority are not the first one, are not the best known in their category, and there is lack of awareness. It's really difficult to, and the sales cycle is, let's say, 9, 12, 18 months, then it's very difficult to be able to say, okay, we are going to generate an opportunity, we are going to start this activity, and we are going to have the first opportunity immediately generated in that quarter. That's crazy. That's just impossible. It can happen if you're lucky to just reach out to an account just at that time. But if you want a sustainable, repeatable process, it might take you longer to get there. That's why as one of the kind of leading metrics that I like to use are meetings, discovery calls booked. So these are calls where you have a meaningful conversation with your target buyer from a target account. You know that they're engaged, and you're talking about relevant stuff like, okay, what are they doing today? You know, the challenges that they have, their strategic priorities. Maybe if they're using an alternative solution, yes or no, right? What is their roadmap like? So you're having meaningful conversation where you can say, okay, there is an actual opportunity here, there is no opportunity, or there might be an opportunity within whatever, 6, 12 months, 2 years, whatever. And so if you do it like that, and if you focus on, you need to be building out your processes, you need to build your strategy, you need to do all of these things. Like you can't just implement a piece of the puzzle and expect the whole system to work. You really need to implement the complete puzzle. But at the same time, what I like to do is within that pilot, start really iterating as soon as possible with the target. I like to start with existing accounts where there is some relationship, and then like, okay, if it's not working with them, it's not going to work with net new accounts, and then gradually introduce net new accounts and work closely to really start as soon as possible seeing those calls, because when you see those calls, then sales can understand how these calls can eventually grow into an opportunity. And they do, often they also do, right? Closing a deal within the same quarter when you had the first conversation is also crazy to expect, but having a sales qualified opportunity or two after having several of those conversations is not actually, it does happen very often that you might have like up to 50% of those conversations might eventually, some of them sooner, some of them later, become an actual real sales qualified opportunity. So this would be my approach, or this is the approach that we use with our clients. It's not easy, it is difficult, right? So getting that initial success, so first aligning, of course, on the strategy, showing that you know what you're talking about, showing that you know that you have a plan, not making a big ask right away, right? Then picking the change agent or the champion, working with them closely during the pilot, focusing on generating results that you can demonstrate, you can show. And then once this is done, now we can start talking about, okay, so how can we scale this? Maybe initially with that person, how can we potentially add other people, right? And that's another story. We can talk about that if you want, but this has already been a very long answer, so I'll give it over to you.
Excellent, man. I think thanks for being so detailed in your answer. I think that gives like a very detailed step-by-step approach for anyone who want to do this ABM with this marketing and sales alignment, right? So I think it is something like a lot of people talk about that, the marketing and sales. I think that is the single most thing which is so difficult to implement, because the word alignment itself has a lot of meaning there, because the two teams has to get aligned. They have to get aligned the idea, they have to get aligned the ICP part. The leadership has to get aligned with the new stuff, the process and the strategy and everything. So that is so difficult, and I have experience in my past consulting gigs a lot. It's so difficult. I think we can talk about that a lot we can put that step-by-step approach. But when you go to implement on the execution part, I feel like that is the single most difficult thing which I have, because I really love execution, because I totally believe in execution rather than talking. But the single most thing which I really felt that execution part so difficult was getting aligned with this, the sales team, the marketing team together with the leadership. That is a so difficult thing. But
Yeah,
that is
you
something
know
like we
what?
are learning every single day.
There is a hack. I don't believe in
Uh-huh.
hacks. I don't believe in silver bullets. And a lot of listeners might not like the hack, but there is a hack. If you are not able to get that buying, that initial buying, etc., then you have to do it yourself. Then you have to do everything yourself. Like then, roll up your sleeves, unless you have short sleeves like me here. Roll up your sleeves and actually run also the sales development part yourself. Then you might need to focus on net new accounts and execute the full playbook yourself, or maybe with a colleague from marketing team. Show that this is working, and then go and talk to them. Say, look, I did it. It's a very limited experiment, etc. This is exactly what we did, and these are the results. I believe that if we had a more professional salesperson, if we gave it a little bit more resources and time, that we could get much better results. But it's not impossible. Like when we started our company, Full Funnel, it's actually only 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. We ran a couple of account-based marketing campaigns, and I ran the whole, like one of them I ran completely myself, right? And it was, let's call it a pilot if you like. It wasn't so long. I think it was maybe 6 to 8 weeks long, with 20 target accounts, ending up with 2 deals or something like that. And it took maybe 1.5 days per week, 2 days per week to run this. Some of these things were new to me. Some of these things I have done in the past. But if you're willing to step out of the comfort zone, obviously you need to have some experience, right? You can also do it like that, kind of guerrilla style. But like the preferred way is like the one that I explained.
Yeah, definitely. I think except on that part, even the second part that you mentioned, like just get to the floor and do the execution part. Even I've done that. But in a lot of cases in the real life scenarios, I have seen the egos also playing a lot of stuff there. Like someone come with a new stuff, they want to implement that. So the leaders who are like, into the old age thinking, that really hurt the ego as well. So that's also, I have seen on that part. So definitely, I think those companies, I would say, like, they are not getting mature to that level, probably not getting adapted to these new age techniques. So we have to move on.
Sometimes
That's
we had at our Full Funnel Marketing Summit. We have this wonderful marketer who I recommend anybody to follow, Mary Keogh. She gave a talk about, it was one of the topics we were discussing was customer research, and she shared something that I am a big believer in. It's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. So you don't need to have everything approved. For example, she was talking about reaching out to customers in a very simple way, by the way. She was just reaching out to them and saying, hey, I'm a new marketer, I'm a new in the space, I'd like to learn more about the industry, and booking conversations, generating customer insights, customer research, firsthand, just doing it herself. So honestly, unfortunately, what I see in a lot of marketing teams is that there's a lot of creativity, and a lot of people like to brainstorm and like to stay in their own whatever comfort zone. But when it comes to doing things that are beyond, let's say outside of their comfort zone, when it comes to actually like reaching out and talking to people and doing things like that sales has to do every day, a lot of people don't want to do this. They just don't want to do this, or they're afraid to do it, etc. So I think this is really what separates the good marketers from the other ones. Let's say the best marketers are willing to step out of their comfort zone, and really importantly, really actually go and talk to people, talk to the actual customers, try things sometimes themselves, right? I mean, if somebody is preaching, why you get all these outreach messages every day, lead generation, companies trying to sell you their outdated processes, and then you're just, they don't even realize that what they're doing to you, they're demonstrating their approach, and you clearly see it is bad, and it's not working, it's broken, etc. So if somebody is trying to preach something and they're not doing it, always think twice about it.
Excellent, man. That also makes me to rethink a little bit on what I'm doing. Not like a lot, a little bit, I would say. Like right now, even I'm also re-strategizing. I think I'm not saying like I'm doing this outreach a lot, but I'm doing with the personalized outreach with some little bit of video and everything. But I think I need to tweak that a little bit. I think, what I'm doing, a little bit of corrections are definitely needed on that part, and that makes me to rethink. Thank you so much for that. So let's move to the next question, Vladimir. So let's talk about something about I think personalization part. So regarding account-based marketing, it's all about deep personalization, right? So how can you achieve the personalization at a scale? For example, if you target more number of accounts, right? So especially when you target with multiple accounts with varied needs from our end, right? So how can we achieve that? What do you think like the best ways to do it?
Yeah. So first of all, account-based marketing is by definition not a lot of accounts. So let me put it that
Love it, man.
immediately, right? So I mean, account-based
Love that.
marketing is one-on-one and maybe one to few. So let me give you a framework that the way that you can think about personalization. And the first level of personalization is personalization on the level of vertical, right? So imagine you are selling, let's take the worst possible example, the most difficult example that we can. Imagine you're selling a CRM, right? There are like more than 800 CRMs on G2. It is one of the most commoditized market products out there. If you're not Salesforce, that is like, or HubSpot potentially, it's really, really hard to even end up in the consideration set, right? So without this personalization, without this like niche focus, it's impossible, right? So let's say that you have been in the market for a while and you do your revenue analysis and you discover that financial service industry is like your top vertical that you should focus on, right? So already there, we can start talking about personalization, because let's say that you position your CRM, like unfortunately a lot of CRMs position themselves, we help your sales reps close more deals. If you're selling to financial service company, they don't have sales reps who close deals. They have agents or financial advisors or investment advisors. That's how they call them. So you can't be talking about reps. And it's not really about generating and closing deals. It is mainly about being able to nurture those relationships, maximize the retention and lifetime value of those customers. So being able to offer them the best, let's say, products, financial products, etc. So you can already see how even on the level of vertical, you can start personalizing the way that you're messaging to that vertical. But this only works if you really understand those customers. And let's go to the next level of personalization, where you can really see how customer research is really important. So let's say on the second level is, let's say, use case or jobs to be done. So especially when you're selling to enterprise customers or upper mid markets or more complex, and if you're having complex B2B solutions, you will have different use cases, and the customers are going to buy your product and use your product for the different jobs that they need to do, or the jobs to be done, right? So going back to our example of the CRM and the financial service industry, let's say that you discover in your customer interviews that one of the reasons why they decided to buy your solution or choose your solution and not the other 800 was because, let's say, some advanced predictive analytics that you have that actually help them offer the offer the best possible financial products to their customers. And imagine that also you have discovered that these are huge organizations, some of them are like big banks or whatnot, and that they have different departments, and you have discovered that usually the first department that buys from you is the actual investment department, so the investment advisors selling these kind of investment products, funds, etc. Okay, now instead of saying I can help your reps close more deals, I can start talking about helping your financial advisors or agents. Well, in this case, it would be like investment advisors, even more specific, right? Offer the best possible products to your, let's say, to investors or customers, whatever, right? And keep them the longest, right? So now you're really personalizing based on that specific use case. Now, you need to make sure, of course, that this is the use case and the job to be done that they actually have. And this is why it's important to not just stop at this level, but go to the next level, which is personalization on the level of the account. It is here where you really start account-based marketing, where you're personalizing your messaging for that specific account. How do you do that? Based on research, account research. So you need to deep dive into account research, looking maybe at the public information that is out there, but also having conversations with the insiders, whether those are people who are connected to that account from your organization, your common connections, or the actual buyers. You can even have the actual buyers or their colleagues where you have chats, like I mentioned at a certain moment that I was reaching out to these top B2B tech companies in my market, having conversations on our podcast about with the marketing directors. So these conversations, they were not sales conversations, but they started giving me insights into the priorities, into the challenges and the jobs to be done that they need to have, and I could now understand how to position our services to them. So this is different ways in which you can run this account research, account and buyer research. And this is, so now maybe, let's say I have, going back to our CRM example, I have one account, a financial, like highly engaged account. I took them from intent data. I did everything fine. Like they're the target vertical. They are engaging, they are showing intent. And now what do I do? Well, I go and I start researching them, and I probably start with the investment department or the investment management, wealth management, I don't know how it's called. And I start researching that, and I start figuring out, for example, they have a high turnover of agents. Okay, so they have high turnover of agents. So this is one insight. So I see another one, maybe they have a new CRM manager. Maybe they had a new CRM manager who was 6 months ago. Okay, how do I use this insight? First of all, I know that I need to engage that CRM manager. Although my champion is usually the sales director, but very important, of course, stakeholder is the CRM manager. I might need to involve them. And it's actually a good time because we know from experience by studying our existing customers that if they have just joined, they will not be considering new tech, maybe like first 3 months. If they're there for a long time, they will be set with their technology. So this kind of could be a good window to also talk to them, and maybe also the reason why they're checking out our website, right? And then I'm now, how can I use this insight to personalize? Well, for example, if I look at this high turnover of agents and look again at my customer research, and I might realize that one of the USPs or one of the reasons, one of the things that our customers love about our product is maybe the high quality of the data. So we have some features or whatnot that allows us to have a better capture of the data from the salespeople, right? So we have better data in our CRM, whatever, right? So there's just an example, right? How does this connect to their high turnover? Well, if I'm able to capture better data, it's going to be very helpful for organizations that have high turnover of agents, because at least we are going to save that data instead of letting this data leave together with the agents that are leaving. And the new agents that are coming are going to be more easily onboarded because they are going to have better information, and this is going to be beneficial also for the customers, because of course customers will hate to lose that historical relationship and suddenly somebody new who doesn't know anything about them coming in and all of these things. Okay, now I can be very like, this is account-based marketing, right? Even more, because, and that was the third level, and there's a fourth level, is level of that person, right? So going back, so we know that for that account there is this very specific value proposition, but let's say we look back at our CRM manager and we look at their LinkedIn profile, and we also know also that one of their KPIs is the main responsibilities is forecasting, probably, right? So they will be doing a lot of reports, but they will also need to forecast, and which is like very important in this industry. Well, because we have high quality data, we know that our forecasting is better, for example. Okay, so this is how I can now start to link the value proposition even to the level of not just that account, but to the level of the buyer, right? So going back to your original question, right? So hopefully now it's clear what personalization is and how you actually do this. Don't look for shortcuts, because if you look for shortcuts, you're going to do worse than not personalizing. Let me just explain what I mean. Because if you make a wrong assumption and use that to personalize your messaging, because you're looking for a shortcut, then you better don't do it, because that kind of a mistake can be just worse than using a more generic messaging that will be ignored, unfortunately, but okay. And what we want to do there, the only way in which you can scale this is, like I mentioned, you can go on the level of the vertical. But actually, I think like a good way to have a more scalable approach would be to consider something that is called mini clusters of accounts. So imagine that now, if you have been following my example, I can say, well, hey, can I look for all of these accounts, for example, financial service companies, that had high turnover in their with their agents? Okay, now at least I'm going to, and then I still can personalize so I'm personalizing based on the vertical, right? But I'm also personalizing based on the use case, based on that cluster, based on the insight. And actually, you can even do a LinkedIn Sales Navigator search for the growth or changes in the departments, right? So you might actually be able to rather quickly build a list of target accounts that have that very specific use case. And then I still can personalize, because I want to, in account-based marketing, you're not just marketing to your account, you're marketing to the members of the buying center or the buying committee. And these different members have different roles, different needs, etc., different KPIs. So I can also still personalize on the level of the role. So I can speak up, for example, to the CRM manager about forecasting, right? And to the sales director about the turnover, right? And know that I'm doing this right. But this is where you should stop, because all the other, like the more mass personalization, of course, you're actually then going more into the realm of let's say targeted demand generation. So you might still, for example, say, hey, whomever, we know that these are our strong suits of our product, so we might still market about, for example, high turnover intention and have this messaging, and maybe try to target, let's say, a bigger number of accounts with that messaging, and then checking who is engaged with that messaging, and then actually doing more personalization and going into that. But then, is this still account-based marketing? Is this just like actually smart demand generation based on customer insights? You could argue it is demand generation. It's actually how demand generation should be done. But if you're looking at scalability, and this is the one last thought that I will share, a lot of people just, in my opinion, just have a wrong way of looking at scalability. They look at effort. It's difficult. It's a lot of work. I have to do whatever, right? So I need to do this, and I need to do that, and I need to do that. But when you're thinking about scalability, don't think about the effort. That's just laziness, honestly. Think about the ROI, because you want to make scalable ROI, right? So let me go back to what I said at the beginning. It isn't unusual to see account-based marketing campaigns that target like thousands of potential customers, thousands of accounts that have like less than 1% conversion rates. So it is scalable in terms of effort. You can target thousands of accounts, but what is that? Is the ROI scalable? Absolutely not. Imagine that your target market, which is in a lot of cases true, is just, for example, 1,000 accounts, right? So anything scalable you try to do, what you're going to do is only going to be relevant for a few of them. And if you keep trying to do that, you're just going to burn a lot of them. So this is also not scalable. It's not sustainable on long term, right? So think about scalability. If I can actually do account-based marketing that is highly personalized, that actually turns 20% or 30% of my target customers into sales qualified opportunities that now close at, let's say, 30% win rate, well, I would argue that it is way more scalable than completely in an automated and a generic way going after the thousands of accounts and then ending up with way less results. Hope that makes sense.
Love that, man. Just love that. That makes complete sense. I'm listening and I'm just completely listening to you, and I'm just realizing how that can be done for my marketing strategies and with my clients. So excellent insight, Vladimir. I learned a lot. So let's talk about a little bit about this. There will be a lot of challenges and the misconceptions about the account-based marketing, right? So, what would be the common misconceptions for these companies when they first start this account-based marketing, and how that should be really avoided in your perspective?
Yeah, I think we really covered them when it comes to misconceptions or mistakes, really what you should try to avoid. And I think it's very clear that it isn't a mass approach, it is marketing to account, so volume has to be much lower than what you're thinking. So this is one of the common misconceptions and mistakes. You don't need to have expensive MarTech dedicated ABM platforms. There are amazing platforms that you can use at a later stage, but if your first step is to purchase a big, expensive six-figure marketing stack that you will then apply a wrong strategy on a process that you still don't have, hoping that the tool is going to actually solve your account-based marketing problem, what will happen is that you will just create even a bigger disappointment, I would say, a career mistake, that after whatever 6 months or so, it will be like, okay, so how is this creating a return on investment? You can start with quite a minimal tech stack. I think basically, just having this good CRM with good information, that's really essential. and having maybe a lot of these tools that you can use to identify and see which accounts are visiting your website, what they're doing there, etc. This would probably be my minimal tech stack to start with, that along with the CRM, maybe LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And then maybe a few other small tools that you need depending on the tech that you apply, but I'm talking about budgets of 100 per month or 200 per month. I'm not talking about something like super expensive. So tech is another problem. Then team is another problem. We spoke about a lot about sales and marketing, alignment or misalignment. Going into an ABM without having an idea of how you're going to fix it, whether you're doing it yourself with a hack, or having that change agent, working with them. That's another big one. And then also, I think maybe one we touched upon, but we didn't really dive deeper in it, is about how you introduce ABM, right? So a lot of companies, they try to run before they have learned how to walk, and maybe driven by that tech investment, maybe driven by this wrong perspective on the scalability, they go for a fully scalable campaign. And the best way to introduce any new program is, just from our experience at least, has been with piloting, right? So creating a pilot team, which has, and that's on the flip side. So you want to start with a very small and dedicated team, but this team, and that's kind of another mistake, has to be dedicated. It's not something you can do on top of everything else that you're doing. So a lot of companies, in marketing, unfortunately, if you look at the marketing plan, you will see a bunch of different activities, right? And they're spreading them. Most teams are spreading themselves too thin on a lot of activities that unfortunately don't bring enough results. So actually having one marketer at least being committed during at least like a quarter or two while you're introducing and running that pilot and maybe iterating on it, being really able to spend at least 60-80% of their time on this, but really dropping the other activities at least temporarily, and like I mentioned, having another person, a change agent from a sales team. This is another mistake that I see very often. So starting small, doing things at the beginning that don't scale, going deep dive into. So we were talking about personalization and scale. So even if you want to do something like a personalization on a level of the job to be done with mini clusters and all, that's an advanced technique. It's actually easier to start a personalization on one account, like one-on-one, get the validation, get the feedback from the market, see whether your assumptions were right or wrong, fix the process, instead of just trying to do this immediately on multiple accounts and then not really kind of getting the binary feedback from the market where it worked, it didn't work, but you don't know why. That's why I like, during that pilot, focus on a small number of accounts, focus on those conversations we spoke about, where you can also get that feedback from the market, validate your assumptions before scaling. And I'm sure there are others, maybe one, just to wrap up, there are many more, but one I think probably important, and it's the one that we started with at the beginning, is the strategy, and especially ICP, right? So a lot of companies make a mistake of skipping these strategic steps, skipping the account research, skipping the ICP and the account qualification, skipping the personalization part and going into tactics, right? So this is a sure way to, to have a campaign that's just not going to perform. It's actually going to be worse than just a lead gen campaign, because at least in a lead gen campaign, what you're doing is you're playing the numbers, right? You're burning the market, you're pissing a lot of people off, but I think you have some numbers, and so hopefully, if you're doing, you can still generate some results. But with account-based marketing, you're going narrow, so if you don't select them right, you're
Screwed.
just, yeah. So that part becomes extremely important, right? So one kind of mindset or something that I always tell to our clients, when you're starting, try to stack the odds in your favor, right? Think about the best possible market, the best possible accounts. Don't think about, okay, oh, maybe we should try this. I have this idea that maybe also this vertical could buy it from us, or oh, we should actually now expand to North America from UK, and maybe we should use ABM for that. Don't do that. Yes, you might do that in the future, might be a good idea, but not for your first campaign where you're learning, because there's so many unknowns and uncertainties that you want to remove just by the fact that you're implementing something new that you don't know, and that you will have to do a lot of learning. You've never done this, maybe yourself, but you maybe never done it on that market for your product, whatnot. Reduce as many of those unknowns and uncertainties as you can, and by doing so, stack the odds in your favor so you can show some results, because without showing those results, you're not going to get a support to build that program further, and nobody's going to be happy. You're not going to be happy, your management is not going to be happy, and you're just going to leave with another failed experience. Sales is going to be even more disappointing. It's going to be so much more difficult to sell them another approach or a program or a fad in future. So hopefully that's a good way to wrap up.
Excellent. I think, as you said right now, you're talking as a comparison between the lead gen campaigns and demand gen campaigns in this account-based marketing, right? So in lead gen, you have to mass email or probably the mass direct outreach of a lot of people. But this one, we are selecting only narrow accounts, so we have to be really careful with whom we select and what we are selecting for, what kind of messaging we are sending to them. And when you're sending to the first guy, probably the first person or probably the first 10%, right? We should get the feedback from them, like is that really resonating from them? Otherwise, the next 100 accounts which you're going to target is like a waste of time, because the lead gen is something like an automation, right? It just goes on in the messages, the cold email, just once you set up, it goes on. There's something like a lot of manual work is involved. So if you don't send the right accounts, I think it's literally screwed. So thank you so much. I think let's conclude this podcast with one last question over here regarding this. See, right now, everything is, a lot of trends are happening in the B2B marketing, right? So what are the new trends and technologies that you're seeing on the rise, especially on account-based marketing?
It's clearly a big trend everywhere, of course, generative AI, and I see that also in account-based marketing. I mentioned some of the tech vendors are also pushing that, and there is definitely an opportunity there. I think the biggest opportunity is probably just really aiding that research, because there is a lot of, you need to process a lot of data. These algorithms are actually really good at are processing this data. I think it can also help with personalization. The only problem that I have with that right now is that, like a lot of technologies, a lot of people are hoping it's the next hack, right? So instead of actually doing the work, just saying, hey, act as a whatever marketing. So expecting the, let's say in this case, like ChatGPT to actually know
I see
now
that
who your
everywhere right now. I can
target
see that
is. So
everywhere.
the data is like the garbage in, garbage out,
Garbage in,
or
garbage out.
the
Yeah.
a full with the tool is still a full, right? So like when it comes to AI, I think the quality of data that you put in is really is the key, right? So that doesn't mean, so the fact that it can help you with personalization, it still means that you need to collect that data. But the collection of the data, analysis of the data is something that these technologies can help you with as well. And I think this is a big trend that I see. Another trend that I see as well is just like from the industry, which is not really like a technology trend or anything, but I just see that a lot of companies, maybe also because it was such a difficult year for our industry, I mean, for a lot of B2B tech, B2B SaaS companies, and with the VC and all of VC funds, going down, and all of these things that were happening, is that I think more and more companies are awaking to the fact that the way that the marketing is done today, B2B, is broken, and more companies are looking for ways out, ways to actually, align the way that we market with the way that the buyers actually buy, looking at more meaningful demand generation programs and account-based marketing, especially those companies who are selling to enterprise, with a higher ACV. So I think that's not a technology trend, but it's something that I do see in the market, like more and more, and depending on the region as well, right? So some regions are a bit further down the road, some regions are less. So it's something that is still changing much slower than the technology is actually evolving. So what I think you can take away from that is that there is still, like, even without all of these technologies, actually there is still a big road and a big opportunity as well for companies to just fixing the foundation and fundamentals. Already you're going to probably go up to the top 5 percentile or 10 percentile amongst your competition. So all of the the latest trends, etc., are just like the last things that will be able to help you. But if you like fix the fundamentals, it's not going to make such a big difference.
Yeah, as you said, there's these trends, the technologies which are all coming all the time, right? They're just like tools. At last, we are going to use it. So, person who is going to use that, how we are going to use that, what kind of stuff that you feed that stuff, right? That really matters because, as you said, garbage in, garbage out.
And we're still like, don't forget, we're still marketing to people, right? And people don't change as fast. Like, we still have the same hardware and pretty much the software that we had 100,000 years ago, almost, right? So that's why a lot of the principles and the way that we are marketing and the way that we are selling are going to be valid for a long while, right? So I think it's also important to be able to distinguish the principles from the trends, from the technology, and the things that are changing. And both are important, of course, right? You can't ignore the trends. You can't ignore the changes in behavior and the platforms, etc. If your buyers are not on a specific platform, it makes no sense for you to market there, right? And the habits and the behaviors are changing, and they're changing fast. Technology has a huge impact. Like already today, people are searching and looking for information thanks to the AI, completely different than I did 6 months ago, right? So these things are changing and very important to know, but at the same time, the way that people perceive, consume information, make decisions, etc., is still based on our 100,000 years old hardware.
Totally agree on that part. So it was, I would say, like, it was a lot of information for me and a lot of information for the people watching the show. So thank you so much, Vladimir. So if anyone wants to do the real account-based marketing, not like any other account-based marketing, some real account-based marketing, any companies, if you want to do the real stuff, you can contact Vladimir and his company. So I'm going to include the LinkedIn profile of Vladimir as well as the fullfunnel.io website link for this YouTube video description. So please contact him. So I would say it's a great stuff that you can do right now for this account-based marketing. If you really want to do that, please contact him.
Yeah, and I would say thank you very much for having me. It was a very nice conversation, and even you don't necessarily have to contact me or hire me. Just check out the content that we produce. A lot of it, and keep hearing people just from the free content we share, both at our website and on LinkedIn, webinars, etc. A lot of people seem to get enough value and are implementing stuff just based on that.
See, the thing is, I have to talk about something about Vladimir's content over here, okay? So if you are following Vladimir's content, two things might happen. One thing is you might hire him for your account-based marketing, or probably the other thing is you want to work for him. So that is the power of the content that he's doing on LinkedIn. Because when I started this B2B marketing stuff on LinkedIn part, I watched a lot of influence over here, but the real stuff was happening only for the few people. I mean, like that. I think only the few people there. I think one was Vladimir. So thank you so much, Vladimir. It was great stuff talking with you about account-based marketing and so much about B2B marketing as well. So thank you so much being on the show. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.